better than yours, Matt. Is everybody hearing me?
I can hear you.
Thumbs up. Yeah, that'd be good. I see some heads nodding up and down. Either Matt or Kim, if you would just monitor the chat box for any questions and kind of flag me down every once in a while. Just to kind of let us know. So let me see, can I get this technology? Okay, now if you got a PowerPoint screen there, just make sure everybody.
Yes, it's on there.
Okay, cool. All right, what I want to go over, and this was a suggestion from Matt and Kimberly both, as far as flies go, and I generally talk about flies with the pink eye topic, but I kind of figured I might go, dive a little deeper into the flies and show you a website that's pretty handy that you can use, and I use the website myself because I'll get questions all the time, and I don't know the names of some of these trade names. So I have to go on this website and look for it to see exactly. All-inclusive list. If it was an all-inclusive list, we might not get through tonight, but this is kind of the main thing that you're going to be seeing on your cattle and horses as well, if you've got horses, and potentially small ruminants as well. But first of all is the Musca autumnalis. That is the face fly. It loves to start popping up about March to around early April, that kind of thing. And the female is the one that feeds on the cattle. Now, something about the face fly, and I'm going to show you a picture of this here in just a minute. Face fly does not bite cattle. They have sponging mouth parts. And so what they're looking for is any sort of secretion from cows, and mostly so it's pretty fast, pretty quick turnaround. Also, something else right here, kind of looking at this March to early April, and I realize we're way on down the road, but you can plan for next year. Some of these flies love to overwinter in barns, hay sheds, maybe even tractor sheds, barns. So something that you could do, maybe kind of around in February, before they're coming out, you could spray the barns and help to knock some of these down. So you're knocking down numbers even before they really get started. And so just to kind of show you right here, this is a typical face fly right here. And kind of just looking right here where I've got circled, you can see that little sponging mouth part that they've got right there. And so what they'll do is they'll go up to the cow that has secretions from their eye, and they will feed. Well, they've picked up, let me just show you. Let's go to the next one. Right here. They go and they feed on that eye that's draining. So you can kind of see here, this cow's kind of got a white eye right here, and may even be a carrier for Moraxella bovis or Moraxella bovaculi. And there's some others that could potentially be there as well. There could be mycoplasmas there. There could be some oddball Pseudomonas, other kind of oddballs that can be there, or chlamydia. Chlamydia causes pink eye in goats and sheep, small ruminants. So these flies could have easily picked it up from a small ruminant coming over to your cow. And what they do when they feed on those that secretion around that eye is they deposit these bacteria that they've picked up and have on their leg parts or on their mouth parts. And they feed right there. And we normally talk about this with pink eye, and we'll talk about pink eye tonight if you want to. Totally be up to you. I'm going to let you pick the next topic. But there has to be some sort of injury to the eye right there. The cornea usually does a pretty good job of keeping the outside world where it's supposed to be until it gets damaged. So if there's a scratch there, some sort of irritation from dust, that kind of thing, The flies deposit the bacteria there in that eye, and then the next thing you know, that eye it blows up. Here is the really rough part about trying to control face flies. Now, we don't know how far a face fly will go hunting a meal, but we do know how far a housefly will go. And this Musca autumnalis face fly is closely related to the housefly. So we always just extrapolate that that rascal will travel 2 to 3 miles looking for a meal. Also, this is the aggravating part about that face fly, is they will feed here for just a little bit and then I'm done. I'm going somewhere else. And so they may travel that 2, 3 miles down the road or that pasture, even just across the road that's not yours to your neighbors, and then spread pink out, or vice versa. They feed over there, and then they come to your house, and then they start feeding on your cows. So that's what's so difficult about trying to control this fly, is that it only spends a short amount of time on the cow. And so the chemicals don't really have much time to be able to act on this fly. Now, you can certainly do the ear tags, the pour-ons, face rubs, back rubs, those kind of things will certainly help out. But because that fly spends such a short amount of time there, it's really, really difficult for our chemicals to do much about it. I'm gonna check my chat box real quick and make sure. Okay, just making sure, because the last time I did a Zoom meeting, my audio was doing just like Matt's and nobody could hear me. So so that's the really difficult part about trying to control this house fly is, or excuse me, face fly, is they don't spend enough time there for the chemicals to really do their job. Next one, the Hematobia irritans, or the horn fly. Now, this one is a much different fly in that this rascal bites. And if any of you have ever had a horn fly, or, and I didn't put this in here because deer flies and stable flies tend to be more of an equine deal, tend to bother horses more, but they can certainly do this as well to cattle, but not nearly as much as the horn fly does. But if you've ever had one of these rascals get on you, you know how bad they can bite. And they are blood feeders. That face fly we just talked about, it is just looking for some sort of secretion. It doesn't necessarily have to be blood, just some sort of secretion coming out of the cow, and they're going to try to feed on it. So that could be discharge from the vulva, that could be discharge from the eyes, that could be a wound on that cow that they're going to go feed on. But this horn fly is specifically looking for blood. Now, this is the difference in this horn fly and the face fly. The horn fly spends almost their entire life cycle on the cow. They literally will only come off that cow long enough to go down to the manure, lay their larvae, and then they're right back on the cow. So you can see right here, the eggs are laid exclusively in the manure pat. The face fly will lay some of their eggs in the forage or out in the brush, but mostly in the manure pat. But these are laid exclusively in the manure pat. And then you can see how they emerge very, very similar to the face fly, only about 2 to 3 weeks and you've got an adult. Man, that's a fast turnaround. I wish we could turn around calves that fast and sell calves that fast. That'd be awesome. And this is just kind of showing you that face fly close up. And this is that bayonet that they've got on their face there, that where they literally, those biting mouth parts, they stab into that cow and go through the skin. And right here is the impact that they're having on those cattle. Because of those billions in losses, because of that biting, and they hurt so bad, billions in losses to the cattle industry. because it's painful. I had one time, and of course, this was somebody that didn't understand the being around cows, that kind of deal. They were asking, well, what's the big deal about flies being on that cow? They just didn't see that that was that much of an issue. Why bother with it? But then I explained to them, well, think about 400 or 500 mosquitoes being on your arms and on your back and down your legs. How would you react? And of course, they just real quick said that would be awful. And I said, that's the same thing these horn flies do to these cows. Because they bite and heavy infestations, those cows are more concerned about getting those flies off their backs than they are eating, trying to gain weight. Could also have possible infections in those bite marks. And also there's some reports that disease can be spread, as in BLV, bovine leukosis virus, anaplasmosis. And those have really not been confirmed. Some study was done at Auburn looking at BLV, and they didn't specifically prove it, but in my mind, it's still possible because of that blood meal they're taking. And also destroys the hide as well. It can damage the hide, and now those tanneries are losing money because of the defects in that hide. Also right here, there's up to a 12% decrease in the average daily gain of a nursing calf because mama's so worried about getting those flies off her back, she's not able to put that energy, you know, I got that energy right there. She's not able to put that energy into lactation to feed that calf. She's more concerned about trying to get those dead blame flies off her back than she is putting that energy into making milk for that calf. You also may have seen this too. You probably may have some point in time, if you had to do anything looking underneath the cow. This is a area where they bite so much that it irritates that hide, and they also can lay a larva there, and that larva is called Staphylophilariae stalzi, and also that can cause, of course, damage to the hide and damaged or reduced quality of that hide. Okay, and then the tabanus, bovinus. You can see by the name there that this actually should be called a cow fly. And that's what I've called them my whole life. But for the most part, everybody calls this one the horse fly. And you know the one I'm talking about. It's the great old big rascal. And I got biting mouth parts, but really what they have, and I'll show you a picture in just a second, they literally have razor blades that can slice into the hide, and then the hide starts bleeding, and then they have a sponging mouth part that they basically sponge up the blood and eat the blood that way. And so literally, I mean, just imagine, well, you probably had one on you before and they bite into you. I mean, they can really let you have it with those blades on their mouth. And once again, the female is the only one that feeds on the blood. And from one blood meal, she can lay up to 5,000 to 6,000 eggs. So they are really, really prolific. And this is just kind of showing you right here. You can see those blades that they've got there that they can literally slice into the skin. And then that little appendage right behind that is where they sponge up the blood. And also, this is a picture right here. This is from West Tennessee. This was last year. And I know that they probably had some of the same problems this year, where they had these rascals that were literally almost biblical proportions of these dead blame things. And you can see them all over the back of this cow here. And she's over in the water. She's probably trying her best to get those flies off her back because it's so much pain there. And if there's enough of them that get on their back, and you can probably notice right there, kind of some areas where there's dried blood where they actually will literally bleed so much. that they'll have those blood stains on their back. Well, I missed a slide there. Okay, I had another slide in there. I don't know why it didn't save. Some of the diseases they can pass. One, of course, with horses is equine infectious anemia. Some of you may have horses. I know that's been a case of equine infectious anemia showed up in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee a year or so ago, when it could have very easily been spread by this fly. Also, anaplasmosis. This cow right here, out in some of these areas where these flies were, we had the farmer catch some of these flies, and we took them to one of our entomologists here at UT, Rebecca Trout-Frixell. You may have heard of her. And she ran the test, and yes, they did find anaplasmosis on their biting mouth parts. Now, I will say this, some of the research has been done where they literally will let these flies ingest blood from an infected cow and then go to the next cow, and it doesn't pass. But I think I have seen some other papers. I would have to go back and look where, yes, they did indeed pass anaplasmosis from one animal to the next through their biting. And if you've heard me talk in the past about anaplasmosis and about changing needles, it only takes 5/1000ths of a mil of blood to transfer anaplasmosis from one, and also BLV, from one animal to the next with a dirty needle. So I don't see why in the world we couldn't do it. It couldn't happen with this fly as well. So here's that website that I was talking about, veterinary entomology. And this is a really cool website. I like this. And notice the ending out there, ORG. So that means it's free. And I like that even better, free. What you can do is you can go to this website, and what you do from there, once you get to the home page, there are selections up there. Notice right here, there's a selection for find a pest, and then the species that pest normally bothers. So you could literally look up hornfly and then cattle in one selection. And then from there, you can find a pesticide. From that, it literally will give you a list of products that you can use for trying to control these insects. And I really like that because, once again, I can't keep up with all these trade names, y'all. It is just too much. I can't, folks will call me up. Well, what do you think about this pesticide, Doc, or this insecticide? And they'll give me the name. And of course, if I'm sitting in my computer, I'm able to look it up right quick. But if they call me out in the field and I'm not able to look on my computer, well, I'm just flat out guessing what's in it, or I'll just have to say, I don't know what that insecticide is. I will have to look up the active ingredient. What's really cool about this, it will give you the trade name, and then it will give you the active ingredient and how effective it's supposed to be on that particular pest. So this is really handy. This is really nice. I think I've sent this to all the agents, but I'm not 100% sure. Kim and Matt, if y'all don't have it, I will send it to you so you can send it out to everybody. Or do like the kids do, pull out your phone, take a picture of this right now, or write it down. Old school style, write it down real quick. And if you can't figure out how to get on this website, get your kids or your grandkids to help you do it, because it is really, really handy.
Doc, I'll send that out to everybody.
Okay, cool.
I'm glad you actually understand me. I have left the friendly confines of people and returned to isolation in the office.
Oh, okay, got it. Got it. Cool. So this is really, really handy to use, and I use it all the time. Any questions before I move off from? I'm gonna go to some control methods now. So any questions on what we've had so far?
You've got one in the chat, Doc.
Okay.
Wouldn't a dust?
All right.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. A dusting of diatomaceous earth be a universal agent to kill all these flies in a cheap, organic way. Here is the way, Nathan, here is the way that I learned about this. If you take diatomaceous earth and mix it with a pyrethroid, it works pretty good. Or an organophosphate, it works pretty good. But by itself, no. Diatomaceous earth, the way the whole idea, the whole premise behind diatomaceous earth is it's a crystal, it's a very fine crystal like compound. And what it's supposed to do is supposed to scratch the exoskeleton of the pest that you're trying to control. And through scratching them, it then opens their system to the environment, and then they die. It's kind of similar to, think about it this way. When you get a piece of candy or a cough drop or something that's got a wrapping on it, the whole idea behind diatomaceous earth is it's supposed to scratch that wrapping, and then the insect or the internal parasite is supposed to then be exposed, and then they die. Well, yeah, it's an organic way, but it's not really that effective. Good question though. Good question. Anything else before we move to the next one? Okay. Okay, somebody's not muted there. You could mute your mic so it doesn't bleed in on everybody else. I don't know who it is that's open there. Just go down there and mute yourself. There's a microphone down to the lower left-hand corner. You should be able to mute yourself. But you can unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, we talked about this. I've already mentioned this. They've got a deposit. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me back up real quick. The tabanid fly, the great big old cow fly that I call it, is the only one that does not deposit their larva in fresh manure. They actually lay their larva out in the brush. Also, that tabanid is not susceptible to our pesticides. Organophosphates, pyrethroids don't bother this fly very much. The control measures are looking at trying to keep the grass cut, maybe keep the water down if there's standing water, that kind of thing. And I've seen some sites that claim you can spray the bushes, that kind of thing, and it will control the horsefly, the cowfly. But according to Dr. Trout Frixel, which is the veterinary entomologist, she says no, it really doesn't. It doesn't really affect that fly that much. So about the best thing that we can do with it is just some sort of management. And we're gonna kind of move on to some other management deals first. So here's what I was talking about a while ago. They overwinter in the barn, so you might could spray your barn early spring and knock some of these flies down before they really get cranked up. Here's kind of what you're going to be getting if you go into any feed supply, online, anything. You're going to get an organophosphate or pyrethroid. Those are the two big ones that have been used the most. Spinosins are out there. This is, okay, these two are in a pour-on, fly tags, back rubs, but spinosin is only in an ear tag. I think Stacy Turner's on here too. If I'm wrong, Stacy, correct me, because he's much better on these products than I am. If I'm wrong there, Stacy, correct me on that. We've got some avermectin ear tags, which have Ivomec, Dectomax. There are some out there that are called Trizap. I think that's the brand name of them, and they have pyrethroids and avermectins both in them, plus some sort of synergist.
Hey, Dr. Strickland, you muted yourself.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I got corrected there. I muted myself some sort of way. I don't know how I did that. Thank you for the correction there. Let me back up. There are some Trizap tags that have organophosphate, pyrethroids and ivermectins in them. I don't know how well they work. I know some people have used them, but no idea there. Tolfrin Pro, you probably won't ever see that again. That one caused chemical burns in cows' eyes. I doubt that one will ever be back out again. I will say that it worked really well on the flies because it's a new class of chemical. So it worked pretty good. And then we've got IGRs and oral larvicides. So this is another tool that you can put in your management toolbox right here is the the insect growth regulators. Now, you're too late in the year to start using that. You need to start using this early in the year. I'm talking way back in late February, going into March. You need to start feeding these. And it is not an insecticide. This is the good thing about these things. The oral larvicide and this IGRs, they're not an insecticide. So they will not cause resistance as the chemicals will. Using the chemicals improperly and mixing those together will cause resistance. I've had owners, producers send me emails and they said they're having fly problems. And of course I say, well, what are you doing? And then they tell me exactly what they're doing. And for the most part, it looks like they're doing the right thing, except they're mixing two classes of chemicals together. And I'm going to go over that here in just a minute. And so that's an easy way to cause resistance. But this is not an insecticide. What it does is you feed this in the mineral or the feed, and it doesn't keep the flies off the cow now. This is shed into the manure. So like we said, the fly comes off to lay their larvae in the manure, and then it can either break the life cycle or it can cause them to become sterile and they're not able to reach adulthood to where they can reproduce. Also, I've had producers tell me that they have used IGRs and long-range dewormer. Long-range dewormer makes no claim whatsoever on controlling flies, but kind of an offshoot of using long-range. And Stacy's not paying me to talk about this. This producer's telling me this. Kind of one of those offshoots of using long-range is it holds down on flies. So I've had producers tell me to use IGRs and insect growth rate, IGRs and long range, and no pink eye for 4 to 5 years. That ain't bad. They ain't bad at all. So I like to start these in March and then probably end them in about November.
Hey, Dr. Strickland, this is
Yes.
Kim. We got a group here in Rutherford County that's watching this, and question here is, will that work on face flies and horn flies?
Yes, because like we said, those face flies and the horn flies lay their larvae in manure. So if they're laying that larva in the manure, it will then work on that larva. But like I said, the problem with the face fly is they take off and go way down the road. So they may literally go lay their larva in manure that hasn't been treated with an IGR, and now you got more flies. So, but yes, it will work. It will work on horn and face flies. Okay. Anything else?
There was a question in the chat about tags. I don't know if you saw it.
Hold on. Just
I can read it to you, but you're not to tags completely yet. So if you want to wait to address that.
I'm not tags yet. I don't see a question about tags here. So
I'll go ahead and tell you so that if you want to cover it during that, it says, I've been having trouble with fly tags creating large holes in the ears and eventually falling out. So if you want to address that while you're talking about it.
That's one I've never seen. I don't know that I've seen that one. Let me ask this question right quick before I move on any further. Are you putting that in and I do this all the time. If I can use an existing hole, I'll use it. So I don't have to punch another hole in that cow's ear. So is that from an existing hole or is that from a brand new puncture? You just put it in this year and that hole's that big and falling out at the end of the year.
If they submit that answer to that question through the chat, I will let you know.
Okay, all righty. So that would be my
Fresh
only
holes.
guess, is
Fresh holes.
they're using an existing hole. I'm sorry, what did you say, Kim?
He said fresh holes.
A fresh hole. Oh, I've never seen that. I don't know what. I think I would literally get in touch with a rep from the company that makes those tags and report that. I have never heard of that happening. I have used existing holes for years and of course new holes. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen where the hole got too big in 1 year or even an existing hole in 1 year and the tag falls out. So I would get in touch with the company and ask about that.
He said the skin around the large hole is very red and irritated, sometimes bloody. So just that was
Yeah,
what.
that kind of concerns me that the chemical in that tag may be causing that. Also, something else. I know we don't do it, and my hands race too. I'm guilty of just grabbing a tagger and not disinfecting that tagger between cows, but there's a potential that some infection could be going on, and maybe disinfecting a tagger in between animals may help you on that. I don't know. I'm just a suggestion. I would really be interested in seeing those holes and see what they look like. But I have seen now I have seen this where those areas get infected from being punched through. So dipping that tagger over in some chlorhexidine or something may help you out on that.
And we have one more on the IGRs. They want to know, will IGR kill, I'm assuming horseflies or help control horseflies?
Yeah, that's a problem too, because that horsefly does not lay their larvae in manure. Yeah, you're going to have, it's not going to really do that much good for a horsefly either. Those dead blame horseflies have figured out a really good way of making a living, and they figured out how to get around us too. So I have gone and watched, like I said, I watched just some videos on how to control horseflies, and they say to use the pyrethroids, but then again, they're trying to sell something. I'm going with what Dr. Trout Frixels is telling me, and she's the one. Hey, she's the one doing the research. She's the one that knows this stuff, and she says no, it doesn't work. And there's nobody paying her to say that, and she's not trying to sell a product. She's just trying to help you out the best she can. Anything else before we go any further? Good questions, good conversation.
Doc, we got a question. Will IGR kill a horse, especially a mean horse?
If you want it to kill the mean horse, double up on it, and it might do it. But no, it says, I mean the animal horse. I see what you're saying. No, there's IGRs made for horses. You can feed Altosoid. I've seen a bunch of feed and minerals that have the Altosoid. That is the actual IGR, and it won't kill the horse. These IGRs are made for all species, for cattle, for horses, for sheep, for goats. So there's all sorts of IGRs out there, but it won't kill the horse. Okay, ear tags. I like to wait. They claim they got 5-month duration, and we got up a couple of cows today just at the repro center. We were just letting one of the students practice today on palpating and passing a rod type deal, and of course I walked around front, and sure enough, there's the old ear tag, fly tags in their ears, and I went ahead and removed those. Now's about the time to be removing them. Because they're starting to wear out. The way these fly tags work, is they have the chemical in them, and they've got a certain amount of concentration in there, and they leach out during the year. Well, if they leach out to where they get down to a certain point, they're not getting rid of the fly, they're just pissing them off. So remove those tags at the end of the season, put those things away, but please still wear gloves while you're removing them. They still may have enough in there to affect you, or the accumulative effect of grabbing a bunch of those things and getting that chemical on you will make you sick as well. I like to wait until there's about 200 flies on the cow before I start putting these in there. Kind of drives me nuts when some of these guys are putting these fly tags in April. That's just way too early in my opinion, but I guess they're going, well, I don't want to get the cow up an additional time, so they'll put them in then. So kind of looking at the way to kind of hold down on resistance. Early in the season, I'm going to use a back rub or maybe even a pour on topical. And then I'm going to move on to that fly tag later in the year. But here's the important part. If you've gone to sleep, wake up now. Use one class of drug for 1 to 2 years and then rotate. That's what I was talking about a while ago. These producers that have sent me email questions, and I'm having fly troubles. Here's what I'm doing. And then and they think they're doing it right. They're saying I'm using the same class of chemical. And then I have to email them back and say, I'm sorry. I know you think you are, but you're not. You have used an organophosphate in your pour-ons and you're using a pyrethroid in your ear tags. That kills off all the susceptible flies. And then all that leaves are the resistant flies to breed back and forth. So I try to get sex into every talk. So here we are talking about reproduction. You've got resistant flies breeding resistant flies, and they are going to beget resistant offspring. So before long, it's like obnoxious Alabama fans and you can't get rid of them. So make sure you're not mixing those classes of chemicals together. Make sure, read your label. If you don't understand what's on that label, you can check your farm supply is supposed to know what's in that. Because I've done the training for them. They have to have CE training every once in a while, and they're supposed to know that. If they don't know, call Matt or Kim or call me. I'll be glad to help you figure out what class of chemical you're using so you're not causing resistance. Using those IGR blocks or minerals early in the year, continuing those out to the end of the season, removing those tags at the end of the season. Doggone if all your pyrethroids didn't work this year, you're using organophosphate next year. Keep a record of what's going on, or just write it down. Well, doggone, I used pyrethroids in 20. I know I probably need to swap, or they're working pretty good this year. Just write it down so you'll know what you did this year, so you can do it again next year, or you can go, no, I need to change next year. Write that stuff down. I like old movie lines, and there's a movie line from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. His dad says to him, I wrote it down so I wouldn't have to remember. So write these things down so you won't have to remember what you did last year and what you need to do next year. Always read those label directions. I know you are, because Matt and Kim have assured me that y'all are really, really smart. You always read the label directions before you use any kind of chemical or give any kind of medication to your cows. Always wearing gloves. Like I said a while ago, this stuff works on you the same way it works on that fly. A cumulative effect over time will get you sick. So wearing gloves. I know we think we're tough. We don't need gloves, but yes, we do. Wear those gloves. And then just write it down. Records, treatment dates, product and lot numbers. So you don't have to remember what you did last year. You've got it written down, and put it in a place where you don't have to remember where you put it. Because, sorry, I'm going to make fun of y'all. You don't know how many times I get the call about this time of year. I've lost my BQA number. What is it? put it somewhere where you know where it is and it's easy to get to. Okay, now here's something else I want to go over just real quick. Hold on just a second. Okay, we haven't been going quite an hour yet, so I think I can get finished up here. We might take a little break in an hour, whatever y'all want to do. You tell me. Because our chemicals are getting to where they don't work, and I kind of found this out when we got those calls from those producers in West Tennessee saying nothing's working. These flies are eating us alive. What can we do? I started doing some research, and I found this on YouTube of all places. Australia has a very, very similar problem. They have a buffalo fly that's kind of similar to the horn fly. It eats them up. From the reports I've read, said these cattle were literally stampede trying to get away from these flies because it eats them up so bad. And the chemicals aren't working, kind of similar to that horse fly or the cow fly. Well, here's something that they came up with. It's called a buffalo fly trap, and I encourage you to go to YouTube and watch this video. It is stinking cool. What it is, this is a little structure here, and you can see it's not that big. It's just kind of an archway type thing. It might be the length of a table, or length of a cow, about 5-6 feet, something like that. And it's covered in this white plastic. The cows walk into it. The flies get confused by the light coming through that plastic, and they fly up. They get trapped in the layer of the plastic up there, and then they cook to death. Well, if that's not enough, and I know you can't see it right here, but you can see it on the video, there's fingers right here, sort of like a car wash, where when they go through, they then walk through these fingers as sort of like a brush, and then it brushes the fly off and gets the flies off the cows. And you can see right here, look, and I realize you can't see the whole picture, but you can see it in the video. These cows literally learn to use this. You have to teach them how to use it the first time. You might have to send it through them once or twice, but after a while, they literally learn to use this to get those flies off their back. And so and I know y'all are creative enough that you could build one of these easily. I guarantee you, y'all have the ingenuity that it takes to build one of these things. To me, it's not that difficult. Here's another one that I found while I was searching. I found this on YouTube once again. This was from an organic dairy farmer. And of course, he can't use chemicals because he's organic. And what he did, he took one of the barrels that he gets his line wash from, soap or chemicals that he has to wash his lines with to keep them clean, and the top comes off, and he cut a hole in the top. You can see it right there, that square, and he mounted a piece of plexiglass right there. Well, then you can see on the sides right here where he mounted PVC elbows, and this is the inside of it. You can see where they turn and go down, and he put just a little short piece of straight on there to where it goes down a little bit further in the barrel. Then he put a little bit of water and soap in the bottom, and then hung something nasty in there that stinks, a piece of rotten meat or something, and then puts that in the pasture. Well, the flies, of course, they go for that smell. They go in that hole right there, and then it's like a fish trap. They can't figure out how to get back out, and they fly up to the light, or they get down in the water down there, and they drown, or they cook. And then after a while, because of all that stink in there, it becomes self-sustaining. And of course, you can see all the fly spots all over the inside of this barrel. You can tell the thing's working pretty good. So this may be something else that has to be considered. I have producers, like we talked about a while ago, these flies sometimes will go from one pasture to the next hunting a meal, and producers will tell me, Doc, I'm doing everything, my neighbor does nothing. What can I do? And this is kind of maybe something you can do here. And I have actually talked with some producers here in Tennessee. This is not something that's on the internet far away from us. This is right here in our backyard. They have built these things, and they feel like they work pretty good. And I mean, hey, how much are you going to spend on this? You're not even going to spend 50 bucks on this. So you could mount this somewhere in your pasture along the fence line. Of course, you have to tie it up because you know what the bull is going to do with that, or one of the cows. They're going to get it down, and it's a roll toy for them. They're going to play with it. So you could tie it up somewhere where they can't knock it over. And there you go. Maybe there's a possible fly control that you could use, for flies that are coming into your pasture from somebody else's pasture, or the flies in your pasture. Also, another one that I've talked about on these flies, y'all have already asked a couple of questions about it, but if somebody's been paying attention, you notice that I said these flies lay their larvae in green manure. So some sort of manure control. Look right here. You can see where they mounted this barrel near a water supply, or you could mount it near a mineral supply. If you do some kind of manure control around that water or your mineral or your feed source, where you feed those cows, to cut down on that green manure that they can lay that larva in. Or hire a kid to ride around in your pasture with a four-wheeler and piece of chain link fence behind it. It drags the manure out, it dries, then the flies have nowhere to go. They don't have any green manure to lay their larvae in. I'm just throwing out ideas, y'all. This is kind of, people ask me questions, and this is kind of the best thing that I can come up with as, some additional management tools that you can add to your management toolbox, because y'all, the chemicals, y'all know this, we're having problems. It's not working. We've created a resistant animal, a resistant insect. We've got to do the best management that we can to try to control this instead of relying on a chemical. And y'all, I'm going to be straight up here, just like I have been the whole time. Matt and Kim both will tell you, and Stacy will tell you both, I'm one of those, what you see is what you get. I ain't going to beat around the bush. I'm going to tell you straight up. Sometimes we're lazy. We want to depend on a chemical to control our problems, or a shot. I have producers, I'll stand there talking 20 minutes about management, how to control this. And the first thing out of their mouth, Doc, hadn't you got a shot for that? Well, no. We were having problems because we haven't used these products properly. We've created a resistant animal, insect, and now we've got to come up with different management tools to help hold it down. So with that being said, we're right at an hour. Any questions?
Doc, any other thoughts on why we've got increased resistance? Is it part of how we've applied over the years, or just because of a buildup? Or any thoughts on your part for how we've acquired a lot of these resistance?
Yes, sir. Like I said, we have used these chemicals wrong. Like I said, that producer that thought he was doing the right thing, but he was mixing two classes of chemicals together. I've had that conversation more than once, y'all, where they think they're doing the right thing, but no, you're actually doing the wrong thing. Also, how many of you, and of course, I can't see a show of hands here, how many of you actually measure it out to where it is the exact amount that needs to be put on there? Because I'm guilty. Some's good, more's better. We put it on there and we don't measure it right, or we don't know the weight of that animal. We just guess. We don't have a set of scales, and we just guess at our product. Now you're doing two things. You're creating resistance and you're wasting money, because you might just be going, well, shoot, I'll just fill up this container, that whatever applicator that I've got, the little cup, I'll just fill it up on every animal and pour it down their back. Well, in some cases that may not be enough. In other cases that may be way overkill. Something else that come out, and I hadn't seen them as much lately. They really pushed them hard and heavy when they first came out. Those CO2 guns that shot the pellet, looks like a paint gun. I've had some guys say they use those things, and they'll always ask this question, well, I shot and I kind of glanced her. I didn't really get a good shot, so I'll load up another one and I hit her with another one. Well, now you've overused. Or what if you decide, well, I just glanced her, I'm not going to waste another one. Now she doesn't have enough. And I've also had some guys say they hear the four-wheeler coming and they run because they know I'm fixing to shoot them with that paint gun. So I hadn't really seen those as much here lately. I don't know if they're going by the wayside or folks are just figuring out, nah, they don't really work that good. I don't know. But that's, once again, I kind of think that might be an issue where we're not using that chemical properly. Okay, I got a quick question here about bovine wart control. Before I move on to that, any other questions? I will talk about wart control. But before we move on to that, any other questions or comments on flies, fly control, that kind of thing? Here's the next question, and it's only 30 more minutes. Y'all just want to keep rocking and rolling?
You're rocking. Let's just keep
Okay,
on.
keep rocking. I like it. I like it. Let's go. All right. So if there's no more questions on the flies, I'll move on to wart control, and I can give y'all another topic if you want to talk about it, or you can just simply do question and answer time. Sometimes that's even better, just to do a question and answer time. Wart control. All right. Warts are caused by papillomavirus, and that virus actually does a pretty good job of hiding itself from the immune system. So I'm sure y'all have noticed this as well. And once again, I guess I'll have to ask this as a rhetorical question because it's kind of hard to wait for everybody to chime in, being on Zoom. I bet none of you have ever noticed a wart on an adult animal. If you have, it's kind of rare. You mostly see warts on younger animals, and that's because their immune system is not completely competent yet. Some of y'all may have had warts as kids. I did. And just being out doing stuff and maybe working on a tractor or doing something else, I'd knock one of those warts off, and all of a sudden I notice my warts are gone. So what happens when you make one of those warts bleed or expose them to the immune system, and that's the way you do that, is by making it bleed, you'll notice that now they're gone. Is what happens. You have an immune reaction to it. Now the immune system is able to see it. So what I typically recommend for warts is the pinching them, just making them bleed. The old timers used to say you got to feed them back to them. And I've got one of the vets here that he still feeds them back to him, and I tease him about that. But you just simply make it bleed and the immune system's able to see it. But that's treatment. That's treatment. But the question was control. So let's go over control right quick. I want you to take a wild guess. What can spread warts between animals? And I will be quiet for this one. What can spread it? We've been talking about it for the past hour.
Flies is what the group here is saying.
Cool, flies, perfect. Fly bites. Fly bites can easily spread warts. Also, equipment not being disinfected in between animals. Also, that virus can hang out on your cattle chute. So if you had one with warts come through and rub up against your cattle chute, rub up against other things that are common areas, a feeder, a mineral feeder, anything of that nature, that can easily spread warts. That virus gets on there. Cow's got a fly bite, cow's got a small wound, something of that nature. They can then pick up warts. So insect control, keeping every once in a while, taking time to disinfect your cattle chute, some of your disinfecting equipment between animals. Some people use Clorox, a dilute Clorox solution. Yeah, okay, but I tend to like chlorhexidine just a little bit better. It's the blue stuff that you can buy in feed stores, Tractor Supply, online, co-op. You can get it most anywhere. Novel sand is the trade name, but chlorhexidine is the actual ingredient. and you can dilute that. It gives you instructions on the bottle how to dilute it, and you can spray it on your equipment. And you actually can spray that chlorhexidine on that wart you just pinched off, and it will help that as well. It'll help to kind of treat that area. In the past, I would use iodine. Well, I still use iodine because I can get my hands on it, but y'all have trouble getting your hands on iodine because meth heads make crack out of it. But chlorhexidine works fine, and it's easy to get. You can buy a jug of it and it'll last you forever because the mixing rate's about 1 ounce to a gallon. So it'll last you a long time. Plus, that chlorhexidine it resists organic material just a little bit better. Clorox won't. Organic material will break it down pretty fast, but chlorhexidine will do a better job in that organic material, and it won't be as rough on your equipment. That Clorox may corrode your equipment, but chlorhexidine won't. I even use chlorhexidine on myself if I have a cut, or if I'm suspicious that I just touched a fungus on an animal, or I rubbed up against an animal with a bare arm or bare skin somewhere. I'll use it on my arms to kind of break down that fungus or whatever. So there is a vaccine available for warts, a commercial one, but here's the problem. There's so many different variety or variations of that wart virus. It's hard to know if you've got the right strain in your vaccine from that commercial. There are companies, if you provide them with enough warts, they'll make you a wart vaccine for your farm. But the problem is they're not going to want to make you less than 500 doses. It might get a little costly. The wart vaccine, some people say it works okay. The jury's still out as far as I'm concerned on wart vaccine, the commercial wart vaccine. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else y'all want to talk about? We can do question and answer. I'll go to a list and you choose from the list. Y'all tell me, your meeting.
If you've got any suggestions, put them in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask away. Doc, what are you seeing this fall? What should we be looking for this fall?
Yeah, that's what I was just fixing to ask. Has anybody seen anything in particular that might be a problem that you feel like is cropping up? I haven't necessarily seen anything in specifically. I will say this. I'm on a project with a couple other researchers here at the university, and we are looking at anaplasmosis, the prevalence of anaplasmosis in Tennessee and within herds. I'm finding a lot more than I thought I was going to be finding. So if y'all want to talk about anaplasmosis, that's something we can talk about. Kind of up to you.
Hey, Doc.
Yes.
Hey, what about on your vaccines for respiratory and stuff like that? Is there a particular kind you like better, and modified live versus killed?
Okay, real quick, let's just go over that. I really can't say that I've got a favorite one over the other. As long as you're using one, I would I'd rather you see using a bad one than none at all. But going back to your question there, that you were just saying modified live versus killed. I will say this though, I am going to kind of give a recommendation on this one. It depends on your herd, what you're doing there in your herd. Well, here, hold on just a second. Let me stop the show. I've got some slides on this. Hold on just a second. Let me just go directly to these slides.
And Dr. Strickland, whenever you get done with the vaccines, there's a couple people here that are wanting to, want you to talk more on anaplasmosis.
Okay. Let's go over this real fast here then.
Real quick.
Okay. Real quick doesn't really exist in my vocabulary because I think the veterinary student that I was with today is on here, and we were going to talk about a couple of diseases real quick, and 2 hours later we were still talking. So killed vaccines, I'm going to use a killed vaccine in a situation where your herd is a closed herd and you don't know the pregnancy status of your cows. Because right here, notice this one right here, minimal risk of abortion if you're using a killed vaccine. And you don't have cows coming and going all the time. You're kind of your own little plum island. You're separated from everybody else. I think they give good protection in that situation. And like I say, minimal risk of abortion there. I don't have to mix it. I can do some storage on the farm. I feel like you get pretty good protection out of that. I will say this right here. Notice the immunity is not as long lasting, and that's why you usually have to booster your killed vaccines. It's going to cause a knot on the neck because they have to add a adjuvant to it to make the animal have an immune response to it, and that's why you see the knot on the neck, especially from blackleg. Because I've had producers say, I'm giving blackleg shots, I got knots on the neck. What am I doing wrong, doc? You're not doing anything wrong. That's because it's got that adjuvant in it. You got to do 2 initial doses, 1 and then a booster. And see, here I go. I can't just be short and quick. Boosters are extremely important. Boosters are really, really similar to you going to the gym to work out. If you work out once a year at the gym, how good will your bodybuilding program be? Not very. But what if you go to the gym every other day? Now your bodybuilding program is going to be much, much better. And that's the idea behind giving a booster. You give that initial shot, the immune system sees it and says, okay, I see what you want me to do. They start building all those white blood cells that they need for fighting off infection. And then when you come back and give that booster like the label says to, and I know you're going to read that label because you told me you're going to read the label. You come back and you give that booster, that then tells the immune system, oh yeah, I'm going to start pumping iron now. I see what you want me to do. I'm going to make some memory cells, some helper cells that's going to fight off that infection. I'm ready for a challenge when the challenge comes along, as opposed to me that goes to the gym once a year. So that's why boosters are so stinking important. But the immunity is not as long lasting with these. You're probably going to have to booster it more often. Modified lives, it's exactly what it says it is. It is a live vaccine that's been modified where it doesn't cause full bore disease. Some of these are just one initial, you booster some, but I recommend boosting all of them. If you read the label, it's going to tell you to booster. The immunity is stronger and longer. These animals actually get slightly viremic. So you got to be a little bit careful using this. If you've got pregnant animals hanging around that have not had a modified live in the past, you give it to one of their herd mates and then they go hang out around each other, they potentially could pass it along to the pregnant animal. Or if you just flat out, notice greater risk of abortion, you just flat out stick a cow that's pregnant and she's never had a modified live before, most likely she will abort. I recommend a modified live in a herd that's a Grand Central Station. Cows are coming and going all the time. You need better protection. I would recommend this in a herd where you do everything and your neighbor does nothing and they've got fence line contact. I'm going to recommend it in those types of areas. You can use it in pregnant animals if you plan ahead. If you give her a modified live, once again, read the label. The label will tell you exactly how to do it. If you give her a modified live while she is open or a heifer, she becomes pregnant. Now down the road, you can give her a modified live again. Just read the label. Also, there's some research out there, and I think a lot of guys are doing this now. They're giving modified lives initially and then killed products once they're pregnant. And I think there's some pretty good data out there that backs up doing it that way. You do have to mix it on the farm, and you got to use it as you mix it. And then so here's what I recommend. Don't be thinking I got 300 calves, I'm going to be smart, I'm going to mix it all up before I get started. No. Mix only what you need and then use it as you mix it. So that's why sometimes I will buy 10 dose bottles, so that way I'm not throwing a bunch away. If you know you got a bunch to vaccinate, you can mix up that 25 dose bottle, but just make sure you're handling it properly. You're keeping it cool at shoot side. You're not exposing it to a lot of light, those kind of things. So before we move on to anything else, it'll take me 30 minutes to talk about anaplasm. Any other questions on vaccines? Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Good deal. And like I say, I don't have a favorite. Just use one. Use one. Okay. I see chat box. Let's go to it right quick. And there it is. They got the OK sign down there. Evidently, I answered that question. Modified live to a cow. You better be careful running her with pregnant cows that have not had a modified live before. Exactly right. Okay. So let's kind of move back to, let's go to anaplasmosis just real quick. And that'll get us at our time. Maybe I can talk about anaplasm in 15, 20 minutes. Whew, I got a long way to go. Y'all see there's almost 200 slides in this presentation. I try to get it all in there, so if y'all ask a question, I can pull up a slide.
Is that just a scare tactic?
Yeah, it's a scare tactic. Okay. Anaplasm. Anaplasma marginale is the agent that causes it. These are red blood cells, and you see those little black dots out there on the edge. That is the anaplasm organism that's gotten into the red blood cell. And then the immune system says, that's a foreign body, I got to remove it. And next thing you know, that animal is very, very anemic. There is another disease called theileriosis. It's from an organism called Theileria orientalis, and the Asian longhorn tick is spreading it. So the clinical signs are almost identical. The problem is I got a treatment for this. I don't have a treatment for that Theileria. So that's why we got to be really, really diligent with our insect control. It is a tick-borne disease. It lives here in the Southeast. It ain't going away, y'all. It's maintained through persistently infected carriers, so you can have an asymptomatic carrier. And then we've got arthropod carriers. We got flies like we talked about. We've got ticks. Wild ruminants may very well maintain it in the environment as well. It can range from a very mild form, which is the younger animals, the calves. The younger calves tend to be a mild form of the disease, to severe disease. That mama cow that's never seen it before may fall over dead in her tracks. I mean, as in literally die, just fast. Here is the big problem. Once they're infected, they become PI carriers for the rest of their lives. Here is a control tactic that is used in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, places like that to teed up with it. They will let the younger animals become exposed to it. And of course, it's a very mild form of the disease. And once they get older, no big deal. They've seen it before. It's like natural vaccination. It's just that you got to be really, really careful with your older animals, letting them get exposed. That older cow, she's going to have a high fever. She'll go off feed. Of course, she's going to be anemic, lethargic, constipation. She will have an old dark yellow urine. I have diagnosed a few that way. I'm looking at this cow. I can't figure it out. She urinates. I see that urine. I go, oh, I'm so dumb. She's got anaplasmosis. They'll have an old dry muzzle. Every one that I've ever seen has an old dry muzzle. They'll be icteric. They'll be jaundiced. The whites of their eye will be yellow. Also, you may look back there around the vulva. You can look at the mucous membranes back there, and it may be yellow. She'll be aggressive because those red blood cells are being removed, and the blood flow, the oxygen flow is not going to her head like it's supposed to, and she will be aggressive. She'll be hunting human rectums. She'll meet you halfway across the pasture. But if you overstress her, she's going to die right there in the tracks, and I've seen it happen. Okay, here's the spread. The dermacenter species tick is the one that carries it, or the brown dog tick. The 8-legged tick, and also the 2-legged tick, where we don't change needles. Matt and Kim will tell you right quick, I am big on changing needles every shot. And I know I just lost a bunch of you right then. You're going, Doc, you are crazy. I am not going to change needles every shot. I'll tell you what, lose a couple of cows and then tell me if you're going to change needles every shot. Think about it. How much, and I've approached this from 2 different ways. I've had producers say, Doc, that's going to cost way too much. Doc, that's going to take way too long to do that. Well, let's compare that. You've lost 1 cow. You take the amount of money on losing 1 cow. How many needles can you buy from that 1 cow you just lost? Now let's look at it in time wise. If I preach it, I got to do it myself. So I've shown up at farms with my boxes of needles. I've got everything ready to go, my sharps container, my pliers to pull those needles off. And I know and I just know it. I'm going to be hearing in the back, somebody's going to be screaming at me, Doc, come on, you're holding us up. Well, the first time I did it, calf is in the chute, calf goes in, I do my gig, I change needles, I turn around and go, where's my calf? I'm waiting on them. I was waiting on them all day long. So this is really easy sitting here in the living room. I can say this to y'all. Don't tell me it takes too long. I can do it. You can do it. Also, contaminated equipment. Anything that's going to change or share blood in between one animal and the next is a potential for spreading anaplasmosis or that filaria that we talked about. So disinfectant, Chlorhex. Once again, here's that Chlorhex. I do have a treatment for it, however, though. I can treat with tetracyclines. And notice here, though, it's a big treatment regime. It's not just stick her in the butt, BQA coordinator, stick her in the neck, and then kick her in the butt out to shoot. You're done. No, you got to treat her over and over and over. And this is just to get her over the clinical syndrome. This is not to get rid of the carrier. You cannot get rid of the carrier state. It still will be there. So we've got to do that in management. I can get her over the clinical stage, but I can't get rid of the carrier. Notice I've got that bag down there of Aromycin crumbles or the Oxytec crumbles or the CTC crumbles, which is nothing but a pelletized form of Oxytec. I can't treat her with that. Because of the VFD regulations, I have to use that for control only. But here's a problem that you see with trying to control it in the feed. What if you've got that aggressive cow that pushes everybody else out of the way? She's eating the dose that the other cows need to be eating too, so that's an issue as well. But still, I can use the Ori crumbles to prevent prevent anaplasm. I can't, however, prevent filaria with it or treat filaria with it. We don't have a treatment yet. Australians eat up with it too, and they don't have a treatment yet. So we've got to manage it. We've got to manage and do tick control to keep that disease down, and also changing needles and disinfecting equipment. I can do a blood transfusion on that cow that's really, really anemic. I can grab another cow, hopefully that's anaplasm free, and pull blood off from her and do a blood transfusion. Doesn't cost that much. Veterinarians, it's not that difficult to do. I used to do them all the time. And the biggest cost there is time. It's not necessarily the equipment. The equipment's cheap. It's just the time it takes to do it, because you can't just pour it to them like you could fluids. You got to take time to do it. There is a vaccine that's available through University Products LLC. I got in contact with a guy that makes this stuff. His name's Dr. Luther. He's in Louisiana, and he's the one that makes this vaccine. And there has not been any clinical trials run on this vaccine. And I called him, just kind of talking to him, and just, to see what's going on. Of course, once again, he's trying to sell something, and I'm sitting there telling him over the phone, well, Dr. Luther, I'm trying to be nice as possible. And I'm trying to tell him, well, your product would be much better received if it had some sort of clinical data to back it up. He says, well, yeah, but I've sold 1 million doses. And he was sure proud to tell you he sold over 1 million doses. But there's no clinical data that this stuff really works. So it's really an experimental vaccine, but you have to get it through your vet from that guy in Louisiana. But it is approved in Tennessee for use, because you use this on an animal and then you test her, she's going to show up positive every time. So let's prevent it. Once again, controlling the vector, whether it's us or that biting insect, fly tags, back rubs, changing needles, disinfecting equipment, and we do have our treatment. I did the Thalaria talk at one meeting, and we jokingly were talking about this after the meeting, and we're saying, I guess we may have to have dip vats come back. And we laughed for just a second, and then we go, oh boy, you know what? That may be real with this Asian longhorn tick. We may have to go back to dip vats to control this insect. Okay, I think that's all. That is all on that one. Any questions on those? Anaplasmosis.
Doc, have we heard about it, finding any Asian longhorn ticks in this area yet?
Not yet. As far west as I've heard of it being is Roane County. So it's still kind of East Tennessee right now. But y'all pay attention. You can easily buy cows here and be in your county before you know it, and you could have easily picked up a cow that's got that Asian longhorn tick on it. So if you buy new cows, take those cows, take time to quarantine them, run them through the chute, just go over them real quick. The ticks like to get inside the ear, around the up in the ear, around the ears, around the tail head, and also Dr. Trout Frixels, she's the one telling me this. This particular tick likes to get down around the udder and around the scrotum too. So if you're castrating calves, just take time, or if you got that cow in the chute or heifer in the chute, just take time to run your hands down around the udder. Just make sure you don't feel an odd knot down there or something. And if you do find one, I don't care what kind of tick it is, Matt or Kim can help you with this. Submit this tick to Dr. Trout Frixel. They can help you do that. They should have the collection equipment and her address to ship it to. Dr. Trout Frixel's not trying to get into your business. She's just wanting to try to keep up with the movement of this tick, to be able to warn folks so that we don't all of a sudden have this tick all the way across the state. Because they've had cows dying in West Virginia from these ticks. And actually we had a couple of cows to die in Roane County from this tick. So just pay attention. I'm not trying to say the world's coming to an end or the sky's falling. I'm just saying pay attention.
Any other questions for Dr. Strickland? Man, that's the most efficient coverage I've ever seen.
Isn't it though? I mean, that's a quiet crowd. I thought usually there's a bunch of questions come in.
I don't have any here in Rutherford County either.
Well, I'm going to stop recording now. Do not get off. I'll go back over my instructions that I apparently failed on the first time around. So last chance for questions for Dr. Strickland. All right.